Everyone, can you hear me? Hello. Everyone, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Good evening, Sripath sir.
Yes, madam. Can you hear me?
Sir, we will wait for 2 minutes, sir, because it is evening time now, sir. Students will join. Just 1 minute, sir. Just 1 minute. Okay.
Yeah.
Sripad sir,
Yes, ma'am.
shall we start, sir?
Yeah, we can start. I hope you're able to hear me and hope you
Good
let
evening.
share my
Good evening to all the participants. Let us start the session 2 of today's program, that is day 3, session 2. And let us welcome our resource person, H.S. Sripad Garu. So now I invite Sripad Garu to continue the session 2. Thank you, sir.
I'm just sharing my screen. You can just let me know once you're able to see it. Can you guys see my screen?
Sir, we can see.
Okay, thank you. So let's discuss on the topic, which is documentation in pharmaceutical industry and modules of CTD. These are two different topics. Let's try to cover one by one. First, let's take up and deep dive on documentation in pharmaceutical industry. Yeah, what is by and large these two things does is it ensures the quality and compliance. Yeah, so what are we gonna see? Let's just break down the agenda. We'll just go with basic introduction, regulatory framework. What is it? Why is it important? Why do we need to have a regulatory? Yes. And then what are the types of documents which is in the pharmaceutical industry? What are the importance of that? What are the requirements? Yeah. How do you control any document? And what are the good documentation practices? And what is the life cycle for any document? What does data integrity mean? And what is electronic documentation? Yes. And document audits and inspection. How do you audit or why there is a need of inspection? We'll just try to understand and summarize all these with just a couple of case studies. And then we will come down to the last part, which is about modules of CTD. Okay. So why do you think there is a need of documentation? Yeah. Let's just try to set the introduction and the objective right before we get started with. Yeah. So in pharma, it is very much clear that if it is not written, it is not done. This is a basic saying which you would hear in quality, moreover, right? So if we are doing something, then it has to be documented. If there is a change, it has to be documented. If you have written it wrongly, then you need to also correct it in a proper way. There is also a way how you need to correct your mistakes. If you are writing something, taking a note of the batch, then there is also a way how you have to correct it. It is not something you can just strike out and correct it there. Yeah, I will show you a couple of examples as we go down the presentation. Yeah, at the end of the day or at the end of this presentation, I would see that you guys can get to know why we give so much importance for documentation in general, and we will also kind of touch base on what is CTD, and we will also more see on eCTD for that matter. Yeah. So why regulatory, or why do we need actually a framework, right? Morning in the session, we discussed on ICH guidelines. When there is already a guidelines in place, why there is a need of regulatory body as such, correct? So, and how documentation and regulatory acts as something which is underlining very much to the ground, correct? So we do have regulatory bodies or so-called health authorities or regulatory authorities, which is individually for each country, right? FDA is for US, EU has EMA, yeah, India has one, and again Japan has one. So each country has its own regulatory authorities, correct? So why do we need them? We need them to be governing and ensuring the product is of highest quality, and yes, it is developed in the proper way, following all the guidelines, correct? So can there be guidelines which are different from each region to region? Yes, but how it is developed or what is the ensuring quality, if I have to correlate it to module 3, then that is something which will be common. how it is clinically tested, what is the way that is tested in non-clinical is going to be more or less common. But what are the documents that is needed to submit, which are applicable and which are not, is going to be something decided by the local health authorities. Yeah. How much of data do they seek? How much of data which can be neglected is something which is defined by these regulatory bodies. Is that clear? So are you able to differentiate what a guideline on an ICH is, and then why these regulations are in place, and why again a country regulatory affairs? Yeah. So the role of regulatory compliance and its documentation is same as the quality documentation or any documentation per se in pharma industry, right? If you need to present a data, then it has to be drafted rightly and it has to be interpreted easily by the end reviewer, correct? So to do that, you need to have a certain documentation practices in place. Are we good with this? Yeah, I hope so, and I will proceed with this. And now we will just see types of pharmaceutical documents. Yeah, we'll just break down each one and then try to understand what they are. There are many number of documents which you will be going through or which you will hear in your pharmaceutical career, right? So I have just taken few standards which are most important so that you guys get to know what exactly it is, or you can just understand in a grassroots level what does that mean. Yeah, you have batch records. So what are batch records? Any, for that matter, if you would have taken any of the finished product, in the end you would see the MRP, expiry, manufacture date, and the batch number, right? Why is it so significant? It is significant to track back when it was produced and to which batch does this belong to, correct? You have a manufacture date already in place. Why batch? Because if you are having a capacity of manufacturing paracetamol tablets, each batch is having a capacity of 1 lakh, then in a day you could easily produce multiple batches, correct? Then each batch has to have a specific batch number, and any record for that matter which is dealt with that particular batch can be called as batch record. Okay, what is that batch record holds? It holds everything from scratch, that is from the beginning of the process to the end of the process. Whatever data is being captured is going to be seen in the batch record. It could be your weighing data, it could be your processing data, or it could be your quality control test results as well. Yeah, with also the list of the equipments used for that particular process. Yeah, so that is batch record. Okay, what is standard operating procedure? It is simple to break down, where it is certainly a step-by-step process which has to be followed to complete an activity. Yeah, it could be into manufacturing, it could be into QC, it could be into maintenance. Yeah, the pharmaceutical industry is such a place where if you consider parenteral dosage forms of biologics as an example, there is a clear documentation on how you need to dress up, how you need to enter the clean room, what is the qualification you have to have, in the sense how you need to qualify to enter into a clean room as well. Yeah. So each thing will be having an SOP. Yeah. How do you sit? How do you move? What is that distance you can move is also defined there. Okay. That is the depth in which you could see the SOPs there. Okay. And IND application, which is investigational new drug application, this is certainly an application or a submission to say, but why is it again in the documents? Because this is, I would say, a huge chunk of data with different number of documents compiled to one, yeah, and then submitted to health authority. Certainly, you can say it in a ground level. It is also a document if you consider it as a whole, correct? So investigational new drug application is something which is filed to health authority to get approval to start your clinical trial. New drug application or a biological license application is something wherein you are filing it as a submission or filing it as a document to get an approval for that biologic or that new molecular entity to get marketed in that particular region or particular country. Okay, so it is also a document, it is also an application. Let me just break it down to you for better ease. There are certain countries which is commonly referred as I can't call it as a third world countries, but in regulatory scenario we call it as mostly ROW, which is rest of the world. Yeah, so all these rest of the world countries are not still in compliance with ECGD. That means most of the data is transferred either in the form of paper or through mail. Yeah, or through certain media where you upload the data and then the data is pulled out by the regional health authorities. Okay, so for those countries, what you are submitting is still a document. Yes, only when there is an ECGD in place, then it is an application or a submission for that matter. Okay, so drug master file is again a submission and application which is certainly dealing with the API. Okay, certificate of analysis. You would have done an analysis for a particular compound, particular batch, particular product. Yeah, so what is the end result what you would have got, that you certify it, basically that becomes the certificate of analysis. Yeah, so validation protocols and reports, there is two things here. One is validation protocol, another one is validation reports. Yeah, so what do we validate? We validate equipment, we validate process, we validate analytical methods. How you have to carry out that is defined in protocol. Yeah, once you carry out that as per the protocol, what is the result you get is documented in the report. Yeah, that is what is meant by validation protocol and reports. So coming to the next set of documents in these discussions, change control records. What is change control? Yeah, so what does change mean? Anything which is different or which was there till now we are doing it differently. Yeah, so then that can be called as a change, right? So in the pharmaceutical industry, if you are deleting certain tests or you are changing certain equipments, or within the process, if you are blending it for 10 minutes, now you saw that only 8 minutes blending is sufficient. Yeah, from tomorrow for any batch you are not going to blend for 10 minutes. There is a reduction of 2 minutes to save your electricity or whatever it could be. It could be time as well, right? So then this is a change. You need to document this. Yeah, and then it has to be reviewed. There will be a number associated with this, which will be commonly termed as change control number. There would be a software where you track all these changes, where TrackWise is one of the famous one. Yeah, that is change control records. Raw material specification. Specification is commonly shortened as spec in the pharma environment. Spec for raw material is nothing but how do you pick your raw material? What is the standard based on which you pick it? Yeah, if you consider any raw material, yes, and let us consider it as a starch, then what should be the purity of it? What should be the heavy metal content in it? What is the permissible limit? What is the standard set by pharmacopoeia of that particular country? Then above that, what is that you define within your company? That becomes the standard specification for that raw material. Okay, so all this data is captured in your raw material specification. Okay, quality control records. Yes, there is a quality department wherein which is one is quality control, another one is quality assurance. Yeah, all these results which come out of a test, yes, that is documented in place. So that is commonly termed as quality control records. Labeling and packaging documents. Yeah, sorry. So what does that mean? It is particularly each is again a document itself. Yes, it may include your artworks, labels, inserts. What is an insert? You would have found it paper within your containers when you are buying an ointment or an eye drops, right? Which will be having all the details on what could be the drug interactions, how do you have to use it, when you should avoid it, right? So all this data is in the patient insert or the PIs or packaging leaflets is also another term which is being referred to. Artwork is basically the secondary packaging in most of the cases. Even that has to be submitted and that has to be also approved upon. Yeah. Labels is something which is your primary packaging, which is mostly in contact with your product. Okay. All these has to be compliant with each of the regional HAs or as per the regulatory requirements. So all these in general is commonly termed as labeling and packaging documents. Regulatory filings we have just brought in here so that I could just touch base upon that and probably explain you more. We have already discussed it before, wherein I told that there are particular submission which goes through agencies. Some examples would be INDs and DAPLEs, and marketing authorization application, wherein you are just filing it to just get an approval for marketing for international markets. Okay. So when does that MAA come into picture? When you would have already got an approval, let us say by US and Europe, and now you're expanding to ROW, there will be no need to again submit every data. You just submit based on these data, which is already approved, saying that we have got a positive response from these. These are the data which was earlier sent to them. We are submitting the same thing to you. Kindly go through and give us an approval. This would be a standard approach there. Okay. Quality agreements. What are these agreements? These would be agreements between different parties. Yeah. So in any system, if you have to run through, then certainly you need agreements, right? If you are buying something by your raw material from a vendor for your raw materials, then obviously there would be an agreement on how they need to produce it to you. Yes. And how it has to be. If you are getting your products manufactured by a third party, right? So if you would have observed in your labels, they would be manufactured by, marketed by, right? So if you would have used a third party manufacturer, then there would be obviously a quality agreement in place. Yes, these are certain examples of agreements. Yeah, safety data sheets. Why do you need safety data sheets? If you are shipping any pharmaceutical equipment or pharmaceutical product, or it could be API or even the intermediary, if you are shipping it through airways or by road, you need a data sheet. If it is not there, it will not move from any of the ports. Okay. What does that carry, or what is the data which will be included in that? What is the temperature that has to be maintained? If it is a vaccine, what is the minimum temperature that has to be maintained? What is the flammable temperature for that? Yeah. What is the safety guidance? How one should handle that? Can it be forklifted? All these data will be seen in the safety data sheets. Okay. Clinical study protocols and reports. Similar way what we saw for validation, it is similarly the same for clinical. Okay. Here, if you are conducting a clinical trial, then clinical study protocol will be defining you how you need to carry out the clinical study. Okay. So whatever the parameters which were asked to be captured as per the protocol, when you capture it, those data points as per the standard, and that document will be becoming your clinical study report at the end. Okay. So complaint records is nothing but when you have something in place in the market, then obviously people, or in our case, the patients may come up or physicians may reach out to you and suggest you or give their feedback, or it could be directly a complaint itself. So how do you handle it? You need to maintain a record for that. That is called as complaint record. Okay. Quality risk management documents, we discussed more in depth of ICHQ9 in the morning. Yes, there would be documentation in place where we discussed on CAPA, right? So outlining the risk has to be mentioned. How do you mitigate? What are the strategies deployed? What is the method you would have used? all those has to be defined and documented, which will be commonly termed as quality risk management document. Are we good with this? Are we clear here? Because this is something important, or to say this has more of the gist of documentation by and large. Okay. Feel free to stop me if you have anything. Okay. Let's just proceed further. So we discussed multiple documents, right? So why do we need to document? Why can't we just do it and then send it out, right? If documentation is in place, it is going to support the research development. Okay. And also it is going to ensure the quality, safety, and efficacy of the finished product. And what is data integrity? This is something, a term which was a catchphrase from the incidents of Ranbaxy. It is nearly years back. I won't say recent. Yeah. But what is data integrity in general? So we usually do it in labs, right? When we want to get certain result, then we manipulate it and write it down and then say that this is what we got. Yeah. So what we do that is in general data integrity. What we got would be different. What we are reporting would be different. Yeah. So there could be cases where you are manufacturing in the batch field and then you need to pass the batch. Otherwise, it would be a bad day for you. Then you are just pushing it, the results, and then passing the batch by manipulating the results. That is data integrity. I'm just giving you very ground vague examples so that you understand what I'm trying to say it here. Yeah. It has to be attributable. It has to be legible. Whatever you would have written, whatever data has been captured has to be legible. Yeah. It has to be contemporaneous. It has to be original. That means what you have written it has to be written by you. It has to be accurate. It has to be attributable. What is attributable? It has to be correlated to something. Exactly. Yeah. So what are the requirements by and large? Yes. So whenever you document, this is one principle which is shortly termed as ALCOA. And now you have something called as ALCOA plus. Yeah. So whenever you document, it has to be attributable, legible. That is what we discussed before in data integrity. Yeah. The top ones in the green is something which I discussed before again. Attributable, legible, continuous, original, and accurate. Correct? What is ALCOA plus now? In today's day and age, any data has to be available at any given point. Right? So if you are running something in your batch, then all your records are stored in your plant. Correct? As a site engineer or a site manager, for that matter, or a site head, if you need to review and if someone is asking you for a pertinent data late at night, you can't travel back to your plant. There were days of that, currently at least not. If your data is in electronic form, it can be available at any point, correct? It has to be enduring, it has to be consistent. That means your data, whatever you are capturing, has to be consistent across, and it has to be complete. Yeah, it should not be captured half. Okay. So this is, I would define it as more or less the general requirement. Yeah. If we are following it, then you need to follow it as per the guideline of GMP and GLP. Yes. And there should be data integrity in place, systems in place. Accuracy, completeness, and legibility is to be there, must. Okay. So let us say you have already done all of these and then your documentations are in place. Okay. So we just discussed, it is, I would say, tip of an iceberg, the number of documents which I mentioned there, right? Then imagine having those many documents in place for each product. Yeah, those set of documents for each site. If you compare it with an MNC, then the number of documents would be enormous, correct? How do you control that? Yeah. How do you know which data or which document is in where, which data is in which document I have to refer when, correct? That can only be established when you have control over your document and data, right? So that is where your document management system comes into place. There are multiple document management systems used based on the requirement and usage of that particular department or particular industry. Yeah. So any data has to be stored, it has to be annotated, nothing but kind of, if you are reading a novel, you put some tags, right? Or a bookmark. If you like something, you can go back and read through, right? That is what in short that means. Document check-in and check-out. If it is electronic format, you need to know who is currently reading this document, who is editing the document. That is what is there when you termed as document check-in and check-out. Yeah. Version control, if it is something revised, then the initial versions would be 1.0. When you change it, when you are reviewing it, it would start by 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, followed by n number of them. And when you approve it or sign it, that becomes 2.0. The latest version then would be 2.0. That is what versioning is all about. Okay. Audit trials to that, that means who reviewed the document, who approved the document, who opened the document, who checked in the document, who checked out the document at what time. Yes. So all of these has to be captured, and that is by default captured when you have your document management systems in place. Yes. So security and access controls, there could be certain data which has to be restricted to a particular set of people. Yeah. So a document from quality, which is core, should not be able to be accessible by a shop floor guy. Yeah. Who is just merely doing the process. So there is a difference between that. Correct? Someone who is in the quality should not be having access to the control group data of running a clinical trial. Yeah. So there is already set things defined who needs to have access to what data. That is the restriction, what a layer which is built over it. That is where security and access control comes into place. I hope you guys got that. Good documentation practices. This is something which we discussed in our earlier session in the morning as well. Yeah. So we need to follow the current good practices. Documentation should be across the processes. Deviations and investigation should also be documented, and data should be traceable. Yeah. So in the beginning, I had told you I will show you some example on what it is. Yeah. Even if you make a mistake, there is a way to correct it. So here there's two examples. One is invalid and another one is valid, wherein someone has captured a temperature. That is a parameter there to be captured. Original entry was made and it is scratched there, and the revised entry has been made below. Correct? What we are not able to assess by that is who corrected it, when was it corrected, what was the reason for that to be corrected. Right? This is what the Olcova principles or data integrities is all about. Yeah. So if we are going to step into quality and you do certain mistakes, then obviously one would be screwed. Yeah. So there is a way to do it. You scratch it and then you sign with the time or date with your signature, saying that this is the person who has done that. Followed by that, below you capture that parameter, the data point which has to be captured, and you also mention the reason for that. That is what an attributable information would be. Okay. Here it answers who corrected it, when was that corrected, and what was the reason for that. Okay. So we talked about documentation types and then data integrity issues, how one has to correct the data or how one has to enter the data. Yeah. And then we also discussed about the electronic documentations, EDMS. Yeah. And then a document should also have a life cycle to it, right? If you write a document, then obviously a document would be invalid at one point of time, correct? So a document goes through its own life cycle from printing to shredding, correct? How it has to be handled is something also defined. When you create, it will be under creation and then it has to be approved. It will be distributed and archived. Okay. Archived is nothing but it will be stored in a proper place. Yes. If you are making any document or ending a life cycle of any document, either it would be deleted electronically or if it is in a print format, it has to be shredded. Yeah. And there should be again a document maintained on why, when, and who shredded it for what reasons. Okay. So document management would be starting with you create and submit. You create a document, you review or based on the change request, and then you approve it. There would be revision control, why it was revised. Yes. Print request and approval. That means if there is a document someone has requested to print, then there would be also a data where it says who printed it when and how many times it was printed for how many copy. Yeah, that we could term it as print history. Document lifecycle is what we discussed now, how it goes through. Yes. And then alerts, that means you created a document, you are the owner of it. You can set alerts to it, who read it. You can set alerts like when the document has opened, when the document has changed its state, when it is made to draft, or when it is written or changed by someone. All these alerts could be set and you will get a notification to that. Access control, as we discussed, it should be accessible by only set of people that could be controlled. Security, you need to have a proper security layer over it so that no one can do any hampering to your data or the document. Yeah, 21 CFR we discussed in the morning as well, which is current good manufacturing practices, Code of Federal Regulations 21 Part 11, which is basically speaking more of e-signatures and audit trails. That means if you are documenting, you sign with your name, signature, and date, correct? If it is an electronic document, the same would be done and that would be gone by your 21 CFR Part 11. Yeah, integration of third-party documentation systems, yeah, is what in general would be captured, and this is what I would term it as a document lifecycle. Yeah, which also spoke more on how a document should be handled or how it has to be, and also partly on the lifecycle as well. Yep. So coming to data integrity. So again, we are stressing more on the Alcova here. Yes. What is data integrity? Somewhere you would have written something and then you understood that this is not right, you are changing it. It could be a real reason that you noted it wrongly, or it could be a reason that your superior has to change it, where it has to be not changed. Then in certain cases, it is a real scenario of data integrity, right? How do you understand or how do you define the data integrity issues? How do you document them is major challenge here. Moreover, not every pharmaceutical company could be completely electronicized. Majorly, at least in India, it is still on paper when it comes to shop floors. Yes. So what are the preventive and best practices? You need to train your people, you need to train your guys on how it has to be done. The importance has to be built up. The culture has to be built, basically. Yes. How do you minimize the data integrity? You need, when you move into electronic and when you have audit trail in place, when you're 21 CFR 11 compliant, your computer systems are validated, you have secure documentation, you have backup and recovery. If someone deletes, you can retrieve it. Yeah. Every user is trained and there are certainly internal auditing carried out. Only in these cases, data integrity can be minimized or scrubbed on. Yeah. So electronic documentation, which is mostly need of the hour and need of the decade, I would say, for the pharma. the whole pharma is going to be transforming more into electronic or automation or AI for that matter. Any documentation which is in paper has to be translated to electronic. What is the benefit? We already discussed about the data integrity aspects. Those are the beneficents which would be there, and that is what is underlying benefit by and large. Okay. Document audit and inspection. Why do we need to have an audit in place? Why one has to inspect it? Correct. So when you are getting any approval from any health authority, then there would be an audit. Correct. When they audit, they are not going to come and see how you do the activity. They are going to see your data, how it is documented, what is your protocol, how you are following it, what is your validation protocol, what is your testing protocol, what is your method development approach, right? How you have captured all the test data. Then this can only be established when you have a proper documentation and a document trail is proper, correct? So that is what is all about of preparing an audit, preparing for audit. When you have right documentation in place, then you are mostly prepared. Okay. So usually in the pharma, we have mock audits where someone can just come up to you, any quality person can come up to you and start an audit any day. Yeah. And there will be certainly planned audits. Planned audits could be when you have a specific date, you know that there is someone auditing you. Yeah. It could be internal, or company could also hire third party auditors to check the preparedness for the audit. Okay. So the common findings will obviously has to be addressed, only based on which you will be getting your approvals. Yeah. Maintaining steady state of inspection readiness is something really need of the hour, because in few instances or in few cases, auditing could be done virtually, but certainly not in all of the cases. At least in these days, it has come down, but still the cases are there. So that is off the topic. I hope you got it what I'm trying to say here with respect to document audit and inspection. Yes. So what would be the best practices and tips for effective documentation management? Best practices would be you have documentation for everything. Your people are trained how to do that, why it has to be done, and how it has to be done. Yeah. And you have built in the culture where data integrity won't be an issue tomorrow. Effective document management can only be, or maximum way to establish it rightly would be through following electronic practices and not going to paper, right? So that would be the best practices. So I will just go through quickly and not spend more time on the case studies here, frankly. So what is this case study all about? Ensuring product quality through documentation. Yes, just to describe this case study, a pharmaceutical company that faced product quality issues due to incomplete inaccuracy documentation failed to maintain proper records in manufacturing process, which led to the contaminated batch being released to the market. So obviously, if you are releasing a batch which is of substandard, your name is going to be spoiled in the market, right? A product recall is something which is going to happen at first. A regulatory will be penalizing the concerned company. A damage on reputation is for sure, right? What is the message which we can get it, or what is the underlying thing here is that you need to have a proper record keeping. Quality has to be there in place. Quality and safety is the utmost priority. Yeah. So in the real world, these consequences would arise only when you have inadequate practices and lack of training. Yes. So let's take another example of clinical trial in this case. Yeah. So clinical trial is basically conducted by a pharmaceutical company, and it could also be outsourced. Yeah, when you have a set protocols. If there is a lack of documentation practices, and data is compromised due to data integrity issues, then the credibility of the results would always be questionable, correct? So then regulatory authorities can always put on hold for your clinical trial. Yes. And what would be the cause for that? Your end filings for your entry or getting an approval for that drug would be stopped. A trust would be broken with your patients. Yeah, investors would not pump in more money because they feel what you are doing is not right. Correct? A medical community would obviously not see you in a right eye. So in these critical importance shows that your data integrity is foremost and utmost important in your clinical trials. And it has a significant impact when you have a poor documentation practices. Okay. So let's see one of the positive scenario for that matter. Yes, a company focused on the proper documentation and then it was well organized and everything was set right at the right place at the right time. Then what would it yield to? It would yield to faster approvals, resulting in quicker market entries. Yeah, it would also enhance trust within the regulatory entities and agencies. It would improve the company's reputation, attracting more partnership investors, right? So this would be a happy scenario, correct? What does that demonstrate? It demonstrates high regards of documentation practices. It also sets the bar saying that if you follow the right documentation practices, then your regulatory audits is going to be fairly in success. Ultimately, it is going to benefit the company and bottom line of the company and its market presence is going to increase. Yeah. So let's see another case, which is fairly good enough, where we see the transition to electronic documentation. We discussed and we more stressed on the need of the hour of electronic documentation, right? So in this case, companies successful transition from paper-based documentation to electronic systems. They transited from paper to electronic. What is the benefit they could achieve is more of data accessibility, where data is more accurate and data is more secured. Yes, challenges faced during the transition, such as system integration and employee training. Obviously, it is noted that whenever there is a change, it is a human psychology and tendency to not adapt it then and there or try to oppose it, right? So that is something which could be seen any given point of the time, right? Strategies employed to overcome these challenges include a phased transition approach and comprehensive training program. What does that mean? If you are doing your transition from paper to electronic, they need to do that step by step, phase by phase, department by department, training each department or each set of groups step by step, and then qualifying them so that they are well equipped to handle these new systems. Okay, so what is the emphasizing advantage of this transition is that when you acknowledge and when you know the challenges, when you do that rightly, it is going to give you more successful transitions. Okay. So let us say there is a deviation in the next company. So they were able to only tackle it because they had promptly identified that what is the root cause for this deviation, and they have implemented the corrective actions and how to be effectively. Okay. And they also kind of raise the CAPA and also establish the preventive action to that so that they see and the curb the issue. Okay. So to identify a deviation, to initiate the CAPA, to initiate a change control, basic thing is we need to have a documentation. If it would have not been documented, then you'd have not even identify that there is a deviation, correct? So when only your parameters are tracked and when you have set what is the lower and higher limit, what is the do's and don'ts, then only you can say that whether it is a deviation, whether it is good, whether it is lower the limit, correct? So that is why documentation is more crucial, and that is why everyone appreciates and data is something which is of higher priority. Yeah. So till now we discussed about the documentation. So Are we good? Shall we proceed further? Or any doubts to these, what we discussed till now? Or was it too much extensive in depth? Okay, I would take silence as yes and proceed with this. So what is CTD? CTD stands for Common Technical Document. So we discussed on ICH in the morning, right? So in multidisciplinary, there is a specific guideline for ECTD, okay, or basically the CTD. In 2000, in the ICH conference, it was finally signed off. What is the objective is to harmonize the requirements, yes, and then this I won't repeat here just to not duplicate what we have already discussed, okay. So where do you get to see the CTD topic? It is in M4, okay. So what does that stand for, or why was it required? Yes, so basically when every country is having their own requirement, then there is a need of the hour where everyone says that these are the data which we need, and we'll need to bring up a structure wherein we also know which data is going to be sent out in which form and where one can easily retrieve that data, correct? That is why a CTD or Common Technical Document was formed, so that everyone can submit their data in a common form, okay? So significance of ECTD is that it's just made life easy for all the regulatory authorities, even in terms of reviewing and pharmaceutical companies to submit, because it is a standard approach. Nowadays, it's not only those three major countries, but also all other countries are just transiting to the ECTD or electronic form of Common Technical Document. Yeah. So then, what you have done once is going to be replicated to other countries as well. Only thing would be that your module 1, which is administrative information, could be different for each country to country. Yeah. So what is modules of ECTD? We told that Common Technical Document, it is by and large one single document, but it is submitted in a particular form. Yes. So wherein we have 5 modules, where module 1 is regional administrative information. As said before, it is something pertaining to that particular region. Okay. Module 2 will be having the whole of clinical data. Yes. Wherein it will be having the introduction, it will be having a quality overall summary, non-clinical overview, clinical overview, and all these things. Yes. And then module 3 is of quality. When it comes to quality, it will be having what was your developmental plan, what is your data for your API, excipient, which was used, what is your test reports, everything will be under quality. Non-clinical study reports, non-clinical data, and the clinical data will be module 4 and 5. So this is how in general the CTA triangle is represented. Okay, so module 1 is not part of the CTD, wherein it is more for region. That means if you are submitting to US, module 1 requirement for US would be different. If you are submitting to EU, module 1 requirement for EU would be different. Okay, module 2 is having certain set of data or documents which are quality overall summary, non-clinical overview, non-clinical summary, clinical overview, and clinical summary. Okay. So module 3 is comprisingly focused on quality, wherein module 4 is going to be having your non-clinical study report data, and module 5 you will be submitting your clinical study report data. Is that clear? Any doubts to this? think we can go on and on. I don't know how much you'll be able to grasp if I go more about the ACTD or CTD for that matter. Do you have any questions? Okay. Let me quickly. Are you still able to see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Are you able to see the Google or you are able to see?
So in
Present-
Zoom only, sir. In
you
Zoom
have to see the
only.
Google page, right?
So students, if you have any doubts, you can post your doubt in the chat box. Or otherwise, you can unmute yourself and ask.
So this is the link which will give you all the data for the CTD, which is L4. Okay. There are no questions. We can end it. Thank you, and I did it quicker. Hope so. I hope you were able to grab something out of it. Well, thank you for the opportunity. I just wish you were able to grab something and it would help you in your career somewhere down the line. Yeah, wish you all the best.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your nice presentation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam. Good day, all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, we will end the session.